Now, the Home Secretary has come under pressure this week to free the women being held at Yarl's Wood. That's the detention centre for female asylum seekers. A demonstration outside the Home Office had the support of MPs, some actors and campaigners. Well, I'm joined now by Meltem Avcil, who was detained at Yarl's Wood when she was just 13 years old. Natasha is the founder of Women for Refugee Movement. And a very good morning to you. Meltem, we want to talk to you. First of all, held at 13, just describe to us some of the circumstances. How did you get to the UK and how did you end up in Yarl's Wood?
Well, I was very young when we arrived in the UK. And
who were you with?
My mum, yeah. And when we came into the UK, we applied for asylum and we had to wait for 6 years before any decision was made. And after, well, the decision was that we were rejected. So then...
You have a right of appeal?
Not on that point, no. We had to be taken away in a caged van by 8 immigration officers to Yarl's Wood. And then we could appeal whilst we were locked up.
And just tell us which country you came from and how you got into the UK.
We came from Turkey, and the travelling part, I was very young. I don't really remember the travelling part, but we came from Turkey because of political reasons to England, and you know, I went to school for 6 years. I had friends. I was learning the language. I was doing stuff, and then one morning, 8 immigration officers came and, you know, dragged us out of the house.
Well, people will be interested to hear more of your story as we get to the point you're at now. We'll tease that out in a moment or two. But first of all, what does this tell us then about how the UK asylum system is working? And tell us about facilities and conditions in Yarl's Wood.
I mean, one thing I do want to say is that I met Meltem in Yarl's Wood when she was just 13 years old, and we were campaigning together then to end the detention of children, and that campaign was actually successful. So children are no longer being locked up in Yarl's Wood. And what's so interesting is that campaign was successful. Children are no longer being locked up, but there's been no rise in absconding among families as a result. And we're saying to the government, come on, there are better ways of dealing with people's asylum claims than locking them up in this arbitrary way. And I think it's very telling that among the 1,000 to 2,000 women who seek asylum who are currently locked up every year, only about a quarter of them actually leave Yarl's Wood to be deported. The rest are released back into the community. Their detention serves no purpose. And most of these women that we talk to in Yarl's Wood, they've already experienced such extreme human rights abuses. You know, they've fled often sexual violence, torture, human rights abuses of all kinds in their home countries. And detention here exacerbates that trauma. Levels of self-harm are high at Yarl's Wood. We have to step up, I think, as a country and make sure that we're treating people with dignity and fairly. That's not to say just a pass, open borders, anyone come in. It's to say dignity, due process and a fair hearing.
Yes, well, you know, we're a nation that obeys the rule of law, we hope, and therefore people have to be treated, as you say, the judgments have to be made. One of the judgments is... One of the issues is that the judgments aren't made quickly enough.
They're not
Talk
made
about
quickly
the length
enough.
of time that people are being held
Absolutely.
for.
We've worked with women who are locked up for days, weeks, months, even more than a year. And because immigration is indefinite, the women who are in detention, they don't know how long their detention is going to go on for. It's not like being locked up if you've committed an offence, when you have a specific tariff that you can count down from. They just don't know. And that in itself is very traumatic and very harmful. And detention is also expensive. You know, it's more expensive to lock people up than it is to process claims in the community.
Meltem, tell us about. I just want to hear some of your personal experience inside. Yeah. We've heard it there from Natasha, who visits and visited Yarl's Wood many times and met you there. Just tell me about conditions there and, for instance, access to education for you.
Well, when I was in there, I found myself dipping cut potatoes into colour and then stamping the blank paper when I was 13 years old. So education-wise, there is actually nothing. As a kid, you know, I was thinking, what did I do wrong? Because surely to go through 8 metal doors, you have to do something wrong. And the education, it doesn't exist. Healthcare, There is a room which is called a health centre, but nothing happens there. Health is very bad in Yarlswood. And these are the most important things. I mean, if they don't exist, then why should the whole place exist?
And Natasha, there are some people listening to this will say, well, look, you're asking to come uninvited to come and live in the United Kingdom. We have to make it fairly difficult.
But I think what we have to bear in mind that a lot of people who pass through this detention, they do actually come to get leave to remain in this country. They're playing by the rules. They're claiming asylum, and they often end up getting refugee status. So there's no reason to treat them cruelly, inhumanely on the way, particularly as it's more expensive and inefficient to do so. What's quite heartening is, although we haven't yet seen any change at Yarlswood since the campaign began, we are seeing more political response now.
I mean, do you think it could be closed altogether and there's no need to hold anyone whatsoever?
Yeah, I think there's no need for detention in the asylum process. The asylum process can work perfectly well with people's claims being heard in the community. And we have had responses now from MPs of all right across the parties. A Conservative MP on International Women's Day stood up and said in the House of Commons, this should be ended. We've had responses from the Minister saying he wants to reduce the detention of vulnerable people. So we hope that step by step we can get to a more humane system in this country, and one that I think, we as British people can be a bit more proud of.
OK, Meltem, we have to get to not the end of your story, but to where you are now. What's happened to you now? Where are you living? What's the education like? And what's happened to your mother?
Well, she's doing very well.
You're together again?
Yes, yeah, of course. We were always together. We were locked up together as well. I study now. I was working recently. I try and see it as not a positive experience, of course, but I'm taking the good out of it. That now I value my freedom more, for example, my education more, my health more. So I'm doing well.
And your attitude to the United Kingdom after this experience? Do you want to, still very young, do you want to stay in the United Kingdom? Do you want to make a contribution to this society? What's your view after this experience?
I'm already making the contributions to the society. Of course I want to stay, because for us it's like we were treated in a worse way in our countries, no matter, where we come from as refugees. So here is like heaven to us, as corny as that sounds.
Well, very good to hear it. We must end it there. Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much.
Indeed, Meltem Avcil and Natasha Walter. Thank you once again.